Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's me, Addy, again, and I hope you guys are doing alright. So, today I'm back with another review video, this time for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I just completed a couple nights ago over on Twitch. Now, this is the second chapter of the Star Wars Jedi series, succeeding the release of Fallen Order close to 4 years ago now. Dang, it's incredible how time flies, right? And fun fact, by the way, Fallen Order was actually one of the first games I ever streamed on Twitch back when I started my content creation journey almost 4 years ago. This is precisely why I was thrilled about the sequel, being an avid Star Wars fan and getting to relive the nostalgia of my early days of streaming. And overall, I did come out feeling satisfied with my experience playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I think that Respawn Entertainment did a fine job with this game. Aside from the glaring issue that I have to address first in this review, the performance problems. Now, if you've had any iota of interest in Jedi Survivor, chances are you've heard by now that this game has severe optimization issues, especially on PC, where the game isn't just a choppy mess on high-end systems, but is virtually unplayable for many. Now, I did hear about this on launch day, so I went ahead and bought this game on my PS5, thinking that this was, a typical case where if the PC version blew, I could always resort to a much more tolerable experience on console. And to my surprise, I couldn't elude the performance issues, even on my PS5. This game was chock full of sporadic frame drops and freezes, even on performance mode, which is supposed to give you a stable 60 FPS experience on a lower resolution. Okay, nice! Dude was firing so hard with that minigun, it slapped my game back into 60 FPS. It gave my game a reality check. But I was just never able to hit those frames for more than a couple seconds in each level of this game, especially in some of the more open zones where things really got jarring for me. And on top of this, I was experiencing an absurd amount of frame pacing and screen tearing issues, which at first I thought was on my end, but then came to realize after a little bit of research that many others were experiencing this as well. The solution appeared to be to turn off performance mode, since doing so apparently equates to turning on VSync on PC, and that did appear to fix the issue with screen tearing, but fixing the issue meant that I had to play at a consistent 30 FPS, so I just ended up staying on performance mode, and I just accepted that screen tearing and choppy frames were a small price to pay to get a smooth 60 frames per second in some areas. And to be clear, I'm not trying to come across as some kind of elitist by suggesting that anything less than 60 frames per second is unplayable. Rather, the gaming industry has established a new standard in recent years, with higher frame rates becoming the norm. It's unreasonable to settle for anything less in this day and age when cutting-edge hardware has been marketed to surpass the limitations of the past. So, when investing in a game designed to run on this hardware, I feel it's only reasonable to expect a standardized level of quality. I understand that many players have already expressed their disappointment with the performance issues in this game, and I'm simply echoing those sentiments. However, I feel it's crucial to emphasize these points, given the recent trend of games facing launch issues. I can't claim to understand the reasons behind why games launch with these problems, but as a paying customer, I'm dissatisfied with purchasing subpar games. It's time to do away with the idea of purchasing unfinished games and waiting for patches to fix them over time. Change is necessary. Now, at the time of this recording, Respawn has already made an announcement that they're gonna be hard at work putting out fixes, so hopefully by the time this review video goes up, some of those patches have already been doled out, and that at the very least, a fraction of the game's performance issues are sorted out. To clarify, they made this statement regarding the PC version. I'm not sure if they have any fixes planned for console anytime soon. I'm hoping they do. Thankfully though, aside from one instance where my game froze and I had to restart it, I didn't encounter any performance issues on the PS5 that took the game from being, simply choppy to straight up unplayable. Barring these issues with performance, I've got to say that Jedi Survivor was a great game, and it didn't take more than a stream or two for me to overlook these issues and fully immerse myself in the experience. And I want to start by examining the story in that regard, as it's what I personally value most in a game when it's executed effectively. Jedi Survivor accomplished just that, and I am truly grateful that it did, especially considering the recent state of the Star Wars franchise from my perspective. In recent memory, the franchise has struggled to balance strong writing and epic spectacle, often sacrificing the former for the latter. However, there have been occasional exceptions that have managed to defy this and provide audiences with a thoroughly entertaining experience, such as the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and to a greater degree, the first season of Andor. Following along closely are the Star Wars Jedi games, starting with Fallen Order and now with Survivor, which serves as a highly gratifying sequel to its predecessor. In my opinion, Andor and the Star Wars Jedi series currently offer the best storytelling in the Star Wars franchise, where they strike an ideal balance between superb character development and exciting action sequences, resulting in a compelling and satisfying narrative. So let's talk about the game, right? As the title implies, Jedi Survivor continues the story of Cal Kestis, the Jedi escapee of Order 66 who fights to resist the tyrannical Galactic Empire. Without revealing any spoilers, Cal's character continues to evolve and grow in a realistic manner, building on the already engaging foundation established for him in Fallen Order. Throughout his journey, he encounters a diverse cast of characters, some new and some familiar, who both aid and impede him in his quest to make the galaxy a better place for all. And this entire cast, including both heroes and villains, are so compelling and contribute to the story so richly. Alongside the thrilling lightsaber duels and epic battles that the Star Wars franchise is known for, the game really takes its time to feature some amazing moments between Cal and these characters. The writing is solid and believable, and these slower moments of growth for Cal and those around him are full of heart and emotion. It's impressive how well these moments are interspersed throughout the game, which is otherwise exciting and full of the exuberant energy that defines the Star Wars universe. And this balance of exceptional character development and thrilling action sequences is precisely what I had previously mentioned Jedi Survivor executing flawlessly. And on top of all this, the game's plot itself covers a wide range of very interesting characters and references from not only the extensively explored Imperial era, but also some of the lesser known sagas like the High Republic. And there are these cleverly integrated elements of fan service that showcase iconic Star Wars characters and concepts, all of which are seamlessly woven into Cal's journey without feeling forced. And that's something that I could greatly appreciate. And how could we not talk about this next part here? It's worth mentioning that pretty much all of this is accompanied by stunning music that stays true to the style of renowned composer John Williams, who was the original composer for Star Wars. You even get to hear some of his iconic tracks during the experience here, such as the legendary Force theme, which is sprinkled in every now and again in some really beautiful ways.
Let your connection with the Force guide you towards our shared
Oh, that's cool.
goal.
They're playing the Force theme.
Kananor.
Centauri Kree was training Jedi for the journey through the abyss.
Very beautiful version of it, jeez. The last thing I want to mention with regards to the narrative is that the game's story is filled with many surprising yet satisfying twists and turns, making Jedi Survivor an incredibly subversive game. And although the term subversive often has a negative connotation, the story's subversions of its characters and events ended up exceeding my personal expectations. So ultimately, I was impressed and immensely satisfied with the game's story, and when the credits rolled, I came out of the experience with a newfound love for all the characters here, especially Cal. And I gotta say, man, that I really do hope that Cameron Monaghan gets the opportunity to bring his incredible performance as Cal to a live-action project in the future. He's done an exceptional job portraying such a complex and compelling character, and I would love to see him return. But besides all the story and writing stuff, I of course really enjoyed playing as Cal because of the gameplay. That's right, you know, I gotta remind myself that this is a video game review, right? Not a movie review. So let's talk gameplay now. So, Jedi Survivor makes some significant improvements to the gameplay of its predecessor, alongside some very welcome additions. While there are some areas of the gameplay where I did admittedly have some gripes, particularly when it came to the navigation and level traversal, which I'll touch on momentarily, the combat system was immensely enjoyable and an upgrade in every possible way from the previous game. To start with, Cal retains his two original lightsaber stances from Fallen Order, those being the single and double-bladed ones, which allow him to execute these incredibly gratifying attacks, dodges, and of course my personal favorite, parries against a diverse range of foes. He does all this in conjunction with many Force abilities, including some that are familiar from the previous game and others that are completely new. And you know what? That's what I ultimately loved about the combat in Jedi Survivor, is that it retained what was already established in the previous game without undoing any of it, and continued to build upon all of it as a sequel should. To give a few examples, Cal gets even more amazing lightsaber stances now, one of which I adored and was just an absolute blast for me to use. Pun intended. Blaster stance. What? No way. That's actually so cool. So it's a hybrid between using your lightsaber and a blaster. What the fuck? Nice. A live target for my new stance. Oh, this is awesome. All right. Say hello to my little friendo. Yeah. And Cal also gets some brand new force abilities on top of the standard telekinetic ones, such as the confusion-based abilities, which feature these force moves that revolve around using Jedi mind tricks on your opponents to get them to fight for you, which is of course a reference to a beloved ability from the Star Wars franchise that made me really giddy to see.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
The various skill trees themselves are a lot more diverse now as well, offering many new ways to fight. And on top of all this, you can even give commands to some of Cal's companions who might fight alongside him during some of the story moments, which make for some really satisfying combat maneuvers and flashy looking finishers. I just loved this whole angle of the game. So in general, Jedi Survivor takes the excellent immersion of feeling like a Jedi that was introduced in the first game and enhances it with well-crafted lightsaber combat and force abilities, which, in my personal experience, are some of the best in any Star Wars game. Now, the combat especially shined during the boss fights, which were incredibly riveting and had me at the edge of my seat the whole time. Except for you. And overall, I just, bosses or no, I just loved striking down my enemies in a myriad of unique Jedi fighting styles, which I kept switching up as I worked my way through each intricately crafted planet. And that's another thing I'll take a second to mention. In Jedi Survivor, there's a nice handful of planets you'll be fighting your way through as the story progresses, but this time around, you'll be exploring them just as much. For one big addition that the sequel brings to the table is open-zoned exploration. Not only do you get to go through a variety of wide linear levels like in the last game featuring Imperial bases, caves, and more, but now you get to explore these vast swaths of land rich with side quests and secrets, particularly on the planet of Kobo, where a majority of the game takes place. There, you get your very own cantina, which you can upgrade over time and purchase new cosmetics and perks from, after which you can roam around the planet on these chocobo-looking mounts to pursue the main story or just seek out the optional content that the game has in store for you. Wherever you choose to go, the game never stops presenting you with new and interesting locations, enemies, and more, all of which reward you with skill points and a large assortment of shiny cosmetics for both Cal and his little cute droid sidekick BD1. And I've got to say that the game's cosmetics and customization were extensively developed and fleshed out. I thoroughly enjoyed this aspect of the game, with how it allows you to change each and every part of Cal's getup, BD1's robotic limbs, and most importantly, your lightsaber. I was astonished at the degree to which I could personalize my very own saber, being able to change up each individual component, their level of polish, and of course the color of the kyber crystal embedded within it to pretty much any color that exists in the Star Wars canon. Hell, even the extremely rare and almost non-existent magenta, which by the way, is totally the best one in the game. You'll see why. All right, so blue, green, purple, yellow. Ooh. Dude, magenta sounds badass. I'm probably not gonna rock it, but damn, listen to that. I'm probably not gonna rock it. Coolest fucking sounding lightsabers of all time. That's right, the crystals all had their own unique emission sounds to them as well, which I do believe was something in the last game as well, but is far more noticeable in this one. Magenta saber just sounded so fucking cool. Sorry, I just have to reiterate that. I just loved how you could change everything about your style in this game down to the smallest of details, and how, because there are so many unique ways to shape the kind of Jedi you want to be in an aesthetic sense, this game boldly puts cosmetics at the front and center when it comes to the rewards you receive as you progress through the game. That this game allows you to play as an established character within this universe, yet still allows you to be the kind of Jedi you want to be, is beautiful. So yeah, guys, combat, customization, and exploration, all undeniable strengths of the gameplay experience here. But now for some of the downsides. I did allude earlier to some aspects of the gameplay that I personally did not enjoy very much that you might have a different opinion on, which is totally fair. And to me, those were the navigation and level traversal aspects. which I felt were implemented a little poorly. Now, I often had trouble figuring out where to go and what to do in most scenarios in this game. While the overall visual direction in this game is great, and I really do admire each level's unique aesthetic and the creative ways in which you need to, solve puzzles and parkour through them, I can't say the same for the actual level structure itself. There was almost never an instance where I would enter a level and just instinctively know what to do, which is usually not a problem I have with other games. And I think a big reason for this is because of Jedi Survivor's overabundance of twisty and oftentimes confusing parkour segments. Almost every single level that you'll enter in this game will require you to run around in circles for a good minute, whilst falling off the map and being generally clumsy, trying to figure out exactly what part of the environment to climb up on or hop off of. And you'll pretty much always be opening and closing your map to get some assistance on how to navigate these levels, which is almost always futile since, in my opinion, the map is atrociously designed in this game. I recall the last game having a similar issue with this map, where in exchange for being a 3D diegetic hologram in front of Cal, it ends up looking like an extremely cluttered mess that is nearly impossible to discern. Here's what I would have done differently. Rather than what we got here, I would have preferred a toggleable minimap and a proper full-screen menu when consulting the entirety of the map, and I think this would combat the issue of it being hard to read as a diegetic UI element in front of Cal. These would probably have made the map a lot easier to follow, and would have also saved the player the hassle of constantly having to open and close the map to consult it, which gets kind of annoying. I would also have revamped the navigation assist feature, which plants a small symbol on your map giving you hints as to where to go, provided you have this setting enabled. There were more than a few times this led me astray, and in one particular instance, it caused me to run around in multiple circles around the same jungle level for an extended period of time, when in reality, I had to be somewhere completely different, at the top of a tower, exiting through a broken window to get to my objective. This feature was just so clunky. Now, there's a silver lining here, right? The one thing I do appreciate about the map is that it occasionally shows you a trail of dots to certain objects or pieces of geography you're meant to interact with in order to make progress. The issue, though, is that these said objects that you're meant to interact with in certain ways, such as, through climbing, swinging, hanging, etc., aren't clearly delineated to the player. While yes, they do have certain unique markings and other visual clues to communicate the way in which the player needs to interact with them, the problem is that they are too unobtrusive, disconnected, and blend into the rest of the environment a little too well. I feel like the level designers could have reached a far better compromise between objects staying true to the style of the environment and giving clear visual hints to the player about how they are meant to be interacted with. Now, when I did finally figure out how to work my way through a level though, Cal's movement itself was really satisfying, and all the traversal mechanics came together really well. I just wish I didn't have to go through this complicated process I outlined each and every time I entered a new level, and that just a few more of these areas could have been a little more straightforward by having a simpler point A to point B approach when it came to traversal. That's all. Last thing about traversal, I promise, but another tiny issue I had with it was sequencing. And I'll explain what I mean by that through an example. A good example of what I'm talking about is this one level where you need to fly between a series of these rocks to solve these puzzles within these small shrines situated atop them. The first two shrines featured a puzzle that was seemingly impossible to solve that involved trying to burn a series of vines guarding a treasure chest. After a significant amount of time grinding my head against a wall trying to figure out exactly how to get to a nearby laser beam in order to burn them, since that's what the game had me doing up until that point with the vines, I had to reluctantly throw in the towel and move on. And the reason I didn't want to is because in most games you usually have everything you need to complete a puzzle in a certain area. And I did with that laser beam. It was just a matter of me trying to get to it. So I was convinced there was something I was doing wrong or something that I was missing, but I had to move on anyway to the next shrine, and I vowed to return at a later time since of course I wasn't able to solve this puzzle. And what do you know, the next shrine ended up giving me this completely outlandish ability where BD1 could shoot black goop all over the wall that's intended to connect laser beams to vines in order to burn them? It just sounds kind of weird describing it. This was frustrating because number one, there was no reason to get this ability after coming across the area where I needed to use it first, and number two, there's no way I could have reasonably predicted that I needed this wacky ass ability in order to complete the puzzles I came across earlier, especially considering that the game had already established a way to deal with those. Now, I did go back and solve those puzzles, but I just wish all of this could have been restructured and sequenced a little bit better so that I could have wasted a lot less time dealing with all this. The game should have given me the ability first and then presented me with all the puzzles that I needed that ability for. Fortunately though, this issue with traversal wasn't something I ran into too often, despite it being pretty annoying when it did happen, which is why I'm mentioning it here. Now, my last and final criticism with this game, which isn't really that big, but it is worth pointing out, is that there were definitely more than a few bugs during gameplay as well, which does once again border into the shoddy optimization category, kind of. But if I'm being honest, I can't say they hinder the experience too much beyond just being apparent, which I can appreciate. And hell, no game is ever going to be completely bug-free at launch, right? And okay, if I'm being honest here, the only reason I'm really mentioning this is because I did notice a couple of funny ones, namely this hilarious stormtrooper glitch in this clip right here. The hell's this? What's going on? Is my game bugged? What's going on?
Haunting Imperials has become a hobby of mine.
These Imperials are haunted. The haunting Imperials, they definitely are haunted, Marin. You could say that again. They're just standing here. They're ghosts. But folks, considering these gameplay criticisms of mine alongside the strengths I could recognize in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, I would give the game a solid 8 out of 10 rating. It is a very good game that I would certainly recommend if it weren't for those performance issues plaguing it right now, which bring it down to a 7 out of 10, in my opinion. It saddens me to say this, right, but if you're a big Star Wars or Jedi Fallen Order fan, and we're really looking forward to this one, I can't recommend this game in its current state right now, given its price. What I can recommend though is waiting a bit until Respawn has ironed out the noticeable performance issues, so that you can fully appreciate the greatness of this game with as smooth of an experience as possible. With the game's director expressing an interest in creating a trilogy, it's likely that Respawn will continue this series with a third installment. And you know what? I'm excited at that prospect, and I think there's a lot of sequel potential here given Jedi Survivor's ending. So I have high hopes that if Respawn does create a Star Wars Jedi 3, they will continue to improve upon the strengths of their previous titles, and most importantly, ensure a smooth launch without any major issues. And I'm saying all this because it really breaks my heart when great games are launched with performance problems, as those issues tend to overshadow the game's brilliance, leading to justified frustration among players and review bombings. So I just hope that every game developer in the future, not just Respawn, prioritize seamless launches to prevent their games from being remembered for something that they were not intended to be, and that the passion and care inherent in them are what do get recognized. And with that, I'm bringing my review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor to a close today. Ladies and gents, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please do be sure to like and subscribe to this channel, as that would greatly help out. And do be sure to drop me a follow over on twitch.tv/AirDoubleIndian if you can, so that you can catch me slicing through some of these Sith Lords live. But you guys, thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, stay happy, stay healthy, stay positive, and may the Force be with you all.